than 3% of you people read books. Because less than 15% of you read newspapers. Right now, there is an entire generation that never knew anything that didn't come out of this tube. This tube can make or break presidents, popes, prime ministers. Television is not the truth. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We deal in illusions, man. None of it is true. But you people sit there day after day, night after night, all ages, colors, creeds.
Broadcasting live on network radio.
So turn off your television sets, turn them off now, turn them off and leave them off.
This is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Real Deal.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
It looks like one of those scenes of an old building being purposely dynamited and blown.
When we are successful,
I'm just a patsy.
and we will be.
Ready to make to come to the microphone, so we'll listen up.
A new world order.
So my name's Robbie Parker.
It might have appeared that way, but from my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m.
Live from the Media Broadcasting Center.
Go ahead, Gary.
I can't really hear you too good, Chance. You're listening to the new JFK show number 81. It's called The Steamroller Show as Larry Rivera rolls over the JFK community. All right, Larry and I, before we get underway, are going to be in Dallas, Texas, so we're going to both be working sound over there, and we'll be able to talk to many, many researchers. And I was actually told by Lorian Fenton we can set up a table, and whoever we can get to sit down and look at it will actually have maybe a survey of what everyone has to say about your research.
Well, I just wanted to tell Jim here that I got I was very pleased to receive an email today from Bill Weston. Bill Weston, as you know, is a very prolific author of JFK articles for the fourth decade. He's the one that wrote The Spider's Web, Marsalis bus number 1213. He did a lot of research on the history and the background of the Texas School Book Depository building, on the Byrd family and all the strange goings on and the people that own that building and the company and everything. And he was very, very pleased, and I was very happy to receive an email from him saying, how impressed he was with the work on the doorway, on the doorman.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful! But he hasn't, of course, seen this presentation, so we'll send him a link to this, Larry, as a token of appreciation.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And Don Fox will be joining us in a few minutes. So we've got the JFK team, Dr. Fetzer, Larry Rivera, Don Fox, Gary King, and Chance George is now a part of the JFK posse. He's in. All right, so next thing, he'll probably be in the OIC. And so he's part of the most formidable JFK team on earth. All right, so travails of the rust-colored shirt. So Larry Rivera has just loaded us up for the weekend of 11/22/15. All right, steamroll. Go ahead, Larry.
Well, I named this one "Travails of the Rust-Colored Shirt" because I don't know of any piece of garment in the history of the United States that has been, subjected to more scrutiny than this one. And it's always interesting to note that if they ever applied CSI techniques, forensics to this shirt, I'm sure that they would not find specks of blood from J.D. Tippit on this shirt. What do you think about that, Jim?
Yeah, absolutely. Lee was in the theater obtaining popcorn. Butch Burroughs has confirmed it by 1:10. Tippit was shot about 1:15. There's no way Lee Oswald was even in the proximity to have performed that act. It was Philip Clemens reported that 2 different men shot Tippit, which corresponds with the physical evidence about the shell casings and so forth, and that neither of them looked like Lee Oswald.
Yeah, last year Larry and I proved that. We walked it off and found out it was impossible to walk it off in the amount of time that the Warren Commission says.
No, and another thing that I wanted to mention, that blood is, on fabric like this has a long shelf life, and if they really, really wanted to, they still have this piece of evidence stashed away at the National Archives, and all they have to do is subject it, to forensic testing, and prove that there is no blood.
Yes.
No J.D. Jefferson.
Of course, they claimed he was wearing a jacket, which he then jettisoned on his way to the theater. So they're always going to introduce an ad hoc explanation for a discrepancy like this. But your point is basically completely sound.
Well, the jacket, the jacket or jackets, that's a whole different ball of wax. But it's very interesting, the travails of the rust-colored shirt. That's the name that the FBI gave the shirt. We know it as the brown tweed, richly textured shirt that Borman was wearing. Okay, but not very many people know about what we're going to talk about here, and a lot of this information is contained in a very obscure file it's a CIA file called the Oswald 201 file, Volume 8. The 201 file goes all the way to 25 volumes, I believe. And each volume within itself has about, some have up to 50 different documents. Now, the one that contains all of these interviews on the people who interacted with Lee Oswald and saw what shirt he was wearing and or were asked what shirt he was wearing, it's just amazing. It's an amazing cross-section of people, Texas School Book Employee Depository employees, that worked with him. And
Gary, could you mute your mic momentarily? We're getting some background noises. You're welcome to unmute when you speak.
Oh, can you? I got an error. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, Don. Yeah. Welcome aboard. We're just beginning Larry's exploration about the rust-colored shirt.
Okay, yeah, it said my mic wasn't on. Okay, apparently it is. All right. Sorry about that. Carry on, Larry.
Okay, so for our first slide is the actual shirt, that Lee Oswald was wearing. And the right sleeve, left side, if you're looking at it from the front here, if you look closely, it has a hole right there at the elbow area, okay? And
below the elbow?
Yeah, right below the elbow, okay? And supposedly this was used to identify Lee Oswald on Cecil McWater's bus, as Jim Garrison so aptly described, the only presidential assassin who would take public transportation to make his getaway. Okay,
right.
So, yeah. So anyway, our second slide here is an image of Lee Oswald at City Hall. And we can see the shirt that he's wearing is exactly the same shirt that is at the National Archives. Okay, this is a black and white image. Okay, the next slide again is our famous Robert Groden close-up of the doorway, showing the shirt that doorman Oswald was wearing. Okay, we have proven that it's Lee Oswald. Okay, and now this I'm just setting this up because the people that we're going to review some of these interviews are going to give you totally conflicting versions of if they saw the shirt, if they did not see the shirt, when it was being worn, and at the end, it's just going to be amazing, an amazing conclusion as far as what actually happened to the shirt. Okay, but let's go on to the next slide here. This is an article by, like I mentioned earlier, Bill Weston, and this is to me, it's a definitive study on both the bus ride, the supposed bus ride, and the supposed cab ride. I have done a lot of research on the cab ride, specifically on verifying the authenticity of William Whaley's affidavits and his and the conflicting testimony that he gave the Warren Commission, and the documents that are supposed to purport that he picked up Lee Oswald down at the Greyhound bus station down in downtown Dallas and took him to North Beckley. All right, but this article in particular, Bill Weston reviews all of the witnesses who supposedly, who the Warren Commission used to back up the notion that Lee Oswald took the bus to make his getaway, and then got off of the bus because it was stalled in traffic. Then he walked over and hailed Whaley's cab, and then went across the Trinity River and on to Old Cliff.
And gave it to a little old lady. Gave it to a little old lady that she wanted it.
Yeah, offered the cab to a little old lady. Yeah, that's amazing. So this article
he was the gallant assassin.
Yes.
The gallant assassin. What a guy.
Yeah. So this article again, is it's dated March of 1993, and it's still relevant today because I don't know of anybody who can refute any of
1995.
1995. Anybody who can refute Bill's research here. It's very thorough. It's very complete, very compelling, so that's why I just wanted to present it here, and because some of his primary source material has to do with what I'm going to present here now, and that's the next slide, and it's Mary Bledsoe, who was in that bus, supposedly in that bus, and identified Lee Oswald and said that he had the face of a maniac, and he was all dirty and disheveled, and he looked like a presidential assassin, Now, the very first reaction when she was presented this shirt, and this was on 12/4/63, and I'm reviewing these interviews as they are presented in this 201 file, okay, in the same order. Now, Mary Bledsoe, as we all know, Lee Oswald had stayed at her rooming house for only a week, okay, and he had left there to go on to Erlene Roberts' rooming house, okay, on 1026 North Beckley, and so that's how Mary Bledsoe already knew Lee Oswald, albeit for only a week here, okay. So when she was presented the shirt by the FBI, her immediate reaction was, no, that's not the shirt, okay. But then, conveniently, when she observed the hole in the right elbow of the shirt, she said, oh, yeah, wait, that's the shirt, And now, however, when you look further down in this interview, it states that she turned her head away from him, meaning Oswald, not wishing to converse with him. Okay, that's right at the bottom here of underlined in red here. So a lot of people have noted this. I'm not the first one, obviously, that how could Mary Bledsoe had recognized, all this detail about Lee Oswald when she admitted that she turned her head away and didn't want to look at him, because she supposedly had problems with him in the past. Okay, so then she stated that her first impression was that it had been the left sleeve, okay, on the shirt because of the ragged elbow. And however, she was not positive. Okay, so already we're seeing a lot of ambiguity here, and this is actually a witness that was used to confirm that Lee Oswald had been on the bus. All right, you were going to say? I
think it was essentially not being the Rambler, Larry, because that would have implied others were assisting him. He couldn't be a passenger and also be driving the Rambler, and therefore would have implied a conspiracy.
And we're going to talk plenty about that, Jim. It's coming up. You're just reading my mind here. Now, it's very interesting because in this article that Bill Weston wrote, he noted that not only did Cecil McWaters, but this kid, the passenger by the name of Milton Jones, this teenager, had stated that the man, supposedly the man that boarded that bus on that specific time, was wearing a jacket, not a shirt. Okay, so this already is refuting,
So if he was wearing the shirt, it was underneath the jacket.
Yeah, but it would not have been, the visibility as far as the whole.
Right.
So that already we're starting to see a lot of problems here, and I placed, if you go on to the next slide, a close up of that hole in the right sleeve, right. Right there, you can see it's a close-up of the right sleeve. If you can tell, you can see that the jagged, ragged hole there. Okay, and now the next slide is her good friend Buell Wesley Frazier, and they asked him about the shirt, and Buell said that he felt certain that Lee was wearing a jacket on this date. Now, of course, Lee was wearing a jacket because when they rode into Dallas from Irving that morning, it had been raining. It was cool, around 50 degrees, so it would have been jacket weather. All right. So obviously, Lee Oswald that morning was wearing a jacket on top of the rust-colored shirt. Okay. Now, this next slide shows.
Well, wait a minute, Gary, would you like to add a comment here? And it wasn't you weren't the source. I think it was Don coming in, and I just didn't know he wasn't here yet. Do you have a comment on this, Gary? You got to unmute.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that we're talking about Frazier saying it was a rust brown shirt with a hole in the sleeve. So we're asking if that the lady was saying that she saw that, but Frazier was saying
Frazier said that he was wearing a jacket, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. That's what he was wearing.
Which he put in the domino room, right?
That's right. That's exactly what we're gonna go on next. Our next slide is the domino room, and this was at the northeast corner of the Texas School Book Depository. And a fellow by the name of Frankie Kaiser found it several days later. Okay, and this is where they found it was a blue jacket, and this is where they found Lee Oswald's blue jacket several days later, because when he left the depository that day in such a hurry, he was not wearing the jacket. The day had warmed up, and apparently he was in a hurry to get out of there, and he was out of there like a bat out of hell, and he totally either he forgot or he just neglected to bring the blue jacket that he had worn into the Texas School Book Depository that morning at 8 a.m. And this is where they found the jacket a few days later. Okay.
And John, if you have comments you want to add, just unmute and contribute. So you're welcome to do that.
Go ahead. So next we have Roy Truly, and they asked him, they showed him that what the FBI did was they went with the shirt, and they showed all these people, employees, FBI agents, Dallas Police Department people, all of them. They went with the shirt, and they actually went and they showed them the shirt, and they wanted to know, is this the shirt that Lee Oswald was wearing that day? Okay. Now next here was Roy Truly, and he was shown the rust brown sports shirt, and he said that the shirt looked familiar to him, but as previously stated, he believes that Oswald was wearing light clothing and had on a white T-shirt or a light colored sports shirt. Okay, that was Roy Truly's impression.
I think Truly's a very honest guy, but this doesn't seem right. I mean, this is odd that he's giving this statement.
Yeah, okay. Now, quickly here, we're going on to Charles Givens, okay? Next slide is Charles Givens. And of all the people, he's the one that was really honest about this, you know, and he said that to the best of his recollection, Oswald was wearing a long-sleeve sports shirt, brown in color. And he stated that the above described sports shirt appeared to be similar to the one Oswald was wearing on November 22nd. And then the FBI adds, but that he could not state definitely that this was the shirt.
Right. That's a technique they'll use, you see, to try to undermine obvious or direct testimony that's confirming a point they want to undermine. Well, can you be 100% sure? 100% sure.
Yeah, and don't forget that Charles Givens was black. He had a narcotics record, okay, in Dallas, you know, and he was very pliable. He was a very pliable witness, and he's the one that the Warren Commission used to place Oswald up at on the 6th floor within minutes of the assassination. Okay, now the next slide here of Junior Jarman. And he said that the above described shirt was vaguely familiar. Okay. And again, Junior Jarman was black. Okay. And, you know, all these black employees had the.
Were they actually being shown the shirt when they were asked questions?
Yes.
And it was the right shirt.
Yes. Jarman was shown a rust brown colored shirt with a hole in the right sleeve. All of these people were shown the shirt. That's why this collection of interviews is so amazing, because what they try to establish towards the end just totally backfires on them, and I'm going to prove that here in a second here. Okay.
Excellent. Yeah.
Now Lenny Mae Randall, who was Bill Wesley Frazier's sister, where Bill.
Next slide, Chance. Third. Yeah.
And she stated that Oswald was wearing a tan shirt and a gray jacket. Now, gray jacket is not a blue jacket like we know that he was wearing. And then that the shirt that she was shown did not look familiar to her. Okay. Now, next slide. The famous Mrs. Robert A. Reed, and who we have never, well, so a lot of people have hypothesized her real name. I believe there's some researchers who have come up with a couple of names, but you have never been able to see what her real name was. And she's the one who said that Oswald walked across the office in a T-shirt, carrying a Coca-Cola in his right hand, and she stated that she had never seen Oswald wear a regular shirt. Okay, and she was certain that Oswald did not have this shirt on at the time that she saw him on November 22nd, 1963. So basically what they're trying to do is totally do away with the shirt, okay, because as we're going to see in a minute here,
the shirt is crucial evidence and
obviously
the identity through time of this individual known as Lee Oswald.
And the man in the doorway. Okay,
yeah, it's quite telling that there's so much attention brought to this shirt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just the idea
it's fortuitous that he was wearing such a distinctive shirt. I mean, that makes a big difference to the whole case in solving the identity of the man in the doorway and his travails thereafter.
That's right. Now, Bonnie Ray Williams, okay, he was totally unable to identify this shirt and could not recall ever seeing Oswald wearing this shirt or anything similar. But Bonnie Ray said, "No, I want nothing to do with this." You know,
he's dealing himself out. Don, you want to come?
It's lynching time.
Don has some words to say.
Yeah, can't hear him.
Don, we can't hear you.
Yeah, increase your mic.
We can't hear you. He unmuted, but we can't hear him.
Yep.
Chance, any idea?
I think what happened to me that time.
Don, we'll have to hold you in abeyance until we can actually hear you, my friend.
Yeah, it's getting interesting here now. Okay, so our next slide, if Chance can move on to the next slide. FBI agent Gary S. Wilson, Okay, now he writes this report dated 11/22, dictated on 11/29, and it's written up on 11/30/1963. Okay, and this one is really good because he's talking about at the Texas Theater when Lee Oswald was arrested, and he says, I distinctly remember that he was wearing either a white or extremely light colored shirt and dark trousers. This observation was made outside the theater while officers escorted him from the theater entrance to a waiting police car. We all know that's true. There were several officers around Oswald, and my only definite recollection is of the color of his clothing.
So how could it be wrong?
So he's saying he was wearing a white or extremely light colored shirt and dark trousers.
And here we have a photograph of what he's saying he saw, and it unfortunately is inconsistent with his testimony.
Okay, so now this is a photograph. Some people have seen a very cropped photo of this, a version of this photograph, and it's called the Jim McCammon photograph, and it went unpublished. The entire photograph went unpublished for 40 years. Okay?
Really?
Yeah. And I mean, this one's a beauty, Jim, because you look at this photograph, and because that's Bill Bentley, the guy with the cigar in his mouth, and he's one of the officers, the detectives that escorted. In fact, Bill Bentley was in charge of polygraphs there at Dallas Police Department. So what was he doing? He
appears to be one of the dirtiest of the dirty in framing.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. He's the one. He's the one that made Bill Wesley Frazier's polygraph disappear.
Yeah.
So anyway, now you look at this photograph, and it's just beautiful here because you see Lee is wearing the rust-colored shirt, isn't he?
And look how he's got it bunched up at the middle. That's very peculiar.
Yeah, he's pulling him out by the shirt.
Yeah, but then now another thing that's very important about this photograph is look at the pants. Look at the color of the pants. They're a bluish color, and this is going to be very important because when we talk about Roger Craig, we're going to see what Roger Craig's description of his attire was that day. Okay, but the reason I'm bringing this one out now is because if you go back one slide and we review again Agent Gary S. Wilson, what he said, and let's not forget this report was dated well before they started to go and show the shirt to all these other witnesses. The date that they started to show the shirt to the witnesses was December the 4th and December the 5th. Okay, but on this day, this happened like the same day of the assassination, and he files this report, and he is saying that he was wearing a white or extremely light colored shirt. Okay,
he does this on the 30th of November, no doubt at the pleasure of J. Edgar Hoover.
Exactly. So this guy really screwed this one up. He screwed the pooch here.
Well, he really displayed that he was willing to lie for the FBI.
So apparently they had some other plans, for the shirt, and this also goes dovetails with what Mrs. Reed was saying that, hey, he was all in white. Okay, so then apparently they had problems, with that. Okay, so then we're identifying here. This is an amazing photograph, the McCammon photograph, and like I said, it went unpublished for 40 years. As far at least the entire uncropped version of the photograph, and this is a brilliant photograph. A lot of detail, and you can see the shirt, and in fact, you can even see Lee Oswald's abs here. And he was in pretty good shape. That's how well this photograph shows here. And,
look at that cop. Look at the cop to the left, man. Does he look like a goon?
Yeah. And so, and the color of the pants, which like I said, is very important when we cover Roger Craig. Okay, now let's move on to the Dallas Police Department officers that interacted with Lee Oswald. Let's see what they had to say. Okay, now this Ray Hawkins says at no time was the shirt removed from Oswald until he was turned over to Captain.
Well, you're skipping the top where he says, after viewing the shirt, this was positively the shirt that Lee Harvey Oswald was wearing at the time he was arrested, and at no time did he remove the shirt.
That's right. Well, thanks for pointing that out.
You got to get his positive confirmation of what shirt it was.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I overlooked that. And it says, at no time was the shirt ever removed from Oswald. Okay, so already, we're seeing, how the travails are playing out here on the rust-colored shirt. Now let's go on to the next guy here, and George M. Doherty. Okay, and this guy was captain. Okay, and these guys are Captain Westbrook, Doherty, and Lieutenant Carl Day. All of these guys are the big, top brass here at the DPD. And Captain Westbrook stated that he is fairly certain that this is the same shirt that he saw Lee Oswald wearing at the time of his arrest on November 22nd. We're talking about the rust-colored shirt.
He speaks the truth.
That's right. And again, the FBI, this guy Vincent Drain, went and showed the shirt to all these people, and this was on December the 4th. Okay, and here's another one, for the rust-colored shirt that he's wearing. Okay, now we go on now to Paul Bentley. Okay, now this is the same shirt that had been previously shown to Doherty, to Carl Day, to Westbrook, and now they go on to Paul Bentley. And Bentley says that this shirt was worn by Oswald all during the time of his arrest, subsequent to his arrest, and transportation to the Homicide Bureau of the Dallas Police Department, and turned over to Captain Will Fritz of the Dallas Police Department. Okay, so again, another confirmation that is the shirt that he was wearing. And this is a close-up of Bill Bentley arresting Oswald, and putting him in the police car that day.
Doesn't he have some kind of nerve to continue to smoke a cigar throughout?
Yeah, no.
And look at that grin he's got.
And look how neatly combed his hair is. Like he knew that they were going to take pictures. That's a great observation, Jim.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Look how nicely combed his hair is.
Pretty bizarre.
I
He
know.
looks like Sylvester in the Tweety commercial, in those Tweety cartoons.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Now, Bob Carroll, another officer who accompanied Lee Oswald, and at no time was the shirt removed from Oswald, and he was wearing the shirt at the time that he was turned over to Captain Will Fritz. Okay.
Good.
Okay. Now, our next slide is going to be the man, Will Fritz. Okay. And what does Will Fritz say? He says that he could positively identify that this was the same shirt that Oswald was wearing at the time he was brought into his office, okay? But then he says that according to Oswald in the interview that he had changed his trousers that day, but had not changed his shirt that day prior to his arrest by the Dallas Police Department. Now,
how many phonies and shills out there have claimed that Oswald changed his shirt?
I know.
You guys hear me now?
I know.
Yeah, we hear you now, Don. Yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome. All right. Hey, I just wanted to know when Lovelady and Oswald switched shirts.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Now the next slide here is lo and behold, Captain Fritz's notes, page 2. And we know a lot about these notes because this is the one. These are the notes that tell us that Lee said that he was out front with Bill Shelley at the time of the assassination. Okay, but these are the actual notes, and the next slide is a transcript of the notes. Okay, and at the bottom it says that he changed his shirts and trousers, put in dirty clothes.
Don, I think we're getting background static. Could you mute? I'm pretty sure it's yours. Thanks.
Okay, change the shirts and trousers, put in dirty clothes, long sleeves red shirt, and gray trousers. Okay, now very important.
Where's the changed shirts come from?
That's what I'm saying.
So
that's what I'm saying.
Fritz.
This is from the Captain Fritz notes of that day.
A change in the transcription.
Exactly. It's not consistent here at all. Okay, exactly. That's exactly my point. Okay, now the next slide. Okay, this is Jim Lavelle, and Jim Lavelle, we all know, was the police officer that
he was shot to death.
That's right. But he had a lot of other very interesting activities that weekend. Okay, but that's not this is not the time to discuss that. But he could positively identify that this shirt is the same shirt that he observed on Lee Harvey Oswald at the time that he was brought in by the arresting officer to the office of Captain Will Fritz at the Dallas Police Department on November 22nd, 1963. All right, that's Lavelle, and he is also confirming the rust-colored shirt. Now, the last slide here on the interviews, the grand finale, the fly in the ointment. Okay, Detective Faye M. Turner. Okay, now this one is really incredible because Detective Turner, and this is on 12/4, he identified this shirt as being the shirt that he personally seized by a search warrant from Lee Oswald's room at 1026 North Beckley Street in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963, in the presence of Detective Walter Potts and District Attorney Bill Alexander. Boy, this shirt is really
it's got quite a history and a lot of witnesses who vouch for him having worn the same shirt.
But this one is really something here, Jim, because it says that he personally seized this shirt. Okay, which means
so he said it was back in his room rather than on the body.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, nice. You can see which are the liars, the little liars, and the big liars.
This is why I call this the grand finale, the fly in the ointment, because how can Detective Turner, and mind you that this was in the presence of this District Attorney Bill Alexander, okay? And we know all about Bill Alexander, you know. In fact, I just wanted to mention something quickly about Bill Alexander. He was interviewed in his latter years, but by somebody who said that he was just amazed that the American public had been so gullible, you know, to just
the American public is the most gullible audience in the entire world.
Right. To believe, the story that came out of Dallas. Okay. So anyway, that's, now the next slide, and this is one of the classics because this is a Jim Murray photograph that you will not find on that assassination gallery website. Okay. And, that website that purports to have all of the images, on the internet, and I'm not going to mention.
And notice how this is right after the assassination. They're letting all the traffic drive right through the kill zone.
That's right. But this is a very rare photograph. This is from the Jim Murray collection. And if you look at that website, you will not find this photograph. Okay, and this is the famous photograph where you see Robert Barrett clutching something in his hand, the agent there. If you see right next to Buddy Walters, to the right of Buddy Walters.
Was that the slug he picked up out of the grass?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But if you look at the circle there, and this is an area that we're going to zoom into now, okay? If you look at this is a photograph that was made available to me by J. Gary Shaw. J. Gary Shaw being the author of Cover Up.
Right.
Extraordinary.
An early book, and still a classic.
Exactly, 1976 with Larry Ray Harris.
Wonderful piece of work.
That's right. And we all know that Larry Ray Harris perished in a one-car accident in Atlanta in 1996. Okay, but
Harris had done a lot of good work on Tippit. On the Tippit.
That's right. That's right. These guys were from Dallas, and these were some of the only voices, who protested. Look, we're not going to accept, what our people here are doing, and Penn Jones, and these people, and so this is where Roger Craig comes in, because this is a lot of the confirmation. And if you look towards the end of that line there behind the bus, you see the Rambler. You see the Rambler, which belonged to Ruth Payne, and that's the Rambler that Lee Oswald is running towards, to make his getaway or whatever he was doing, leaving Dealey Plaza in a hurry. And this is also one of the main things that make me think
But Larry, you don't have the Rambler circle. You have the sign, the stem and sign circle.
Yeah, because I'm going to zoom in there now. Okay. The next slide. Okay. Now this.
I think we got those background sounds again. I don't know why.
All right. Now this is we're zooming in to that area that was circled. Okay, and the individual here. And this is where Richard Hook did a lot of work on this. When I provided the image, that he did some really, really nice work on interpreting the figure here. And as we can see, he's wearing a T-shirt, and if you look closely, you'll see that dark area around his shoulder is actually the shirt that is being puffed up in the wind as he's running. Okay, he's actually running down from the area of the Texas School Book Depository.
And who is it who's running? Who is it who's running?
Well, that appears to be Lee Oswald. Okay, because this is exactly the scenario that Roger Craig identified and that he spoke about, and this is one of the reasons why he became such a pariah in Dallas, because
is that him right in the middle of the photograph?
That's right. That's right. And if we
the
go
dark
to
area is he's carrying his shirt while he's running.
well, the shirt is puffed up like Richard says, like a parachute, because as you know, the shirt had no buttons, and
yeah,
it
but
was
we're
sort of
looking
like
for the color. See, what Gary is saying is it looks like he's holding it under his left arm. See, rather than wearing it.
No. Well, his left arm is running through the shirt, and it's we'll see in the next couple of slides.
Gary, what Larry's saying is the shirt is blown back by the wind. See, so it's off of his shoulders where it should.
That's right.
I got it.
That's right. Okay, and Gary Shaw was the first researcher to point this out in that book, and unfortunately, a lot of people have refuted his findings, However, there are many witnesses who were never brought before the Warren Commission. Okay, and this is a marvelous collage here that Richard made up, and with a lot of the information on the witnesses. For example, 4 witnesses saw the Rambler that day: Helen Forrest, James Pennington, Marvin Robinson, Roy Cooper, okay, and of course Roger Craig, because these 4 witnesses supported what Roger Craig saw, which was that Lee Oswald got into that Rambler, and that Rambler was being driven by a Latin-type individual, and it went right down Elm Street and under the triple underpass, and apparently on its way to Oak Cliff. But the next slide is, if you want to run the next slide here, this is the Richard Hook collage where he explains, if you look at Richard's explanations here, where he shows his left arm is extended, where he's running to Ruth Payne's Rambler, and the overblown brown back, which looks like a parachute. And he even noted the shiny spots on the overshirt reflecting in the sun. Okay, and this is, again, it's a very, very small area of this Murray photograph, but it looks remarkably like the Oswald, okay, and B, the shirt and the T-shirt that he was wearing that day. Okay, so like I said, and now the next slide.
Hey, can we do a photo overlay of a tiny picture like that?
There's not enough definition. But the next slide is what Roger Craig saw, and this is what is in his Warren Commission testimony, and it says, where he describes, he had kind of medium brown sandy hair. It was like it had been blown, he'd been in the wind or something. It was all wild looking. And that's exactly what we see in that image there. His hair is all,
Yeah, his hair looks real strange. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And he had blue trousers. Okay. Now, what color were the trousers that we saw in the McCammon photograph that we showed earlier? The blue trousers. Okay. So this is confirmation in a way, 40 years later, of what Roger Craig saw, what he was actually wearing. And then what was he wearing? Well, a light tan shirt, as I remember. Okay. And then what else did he remember? That he looked like he was in an awful hurry. Okay. Now, the implications of this, obviously, to me, are that he was involved in some way in this whole operation, but obviously he was not pulling any triggers. Okay. But why was he making that getaway?
Or getting into the Rambler. Yeah.
you know.
Go back to the next. Yeah, here's the next photo, 31.
Yeah. So the next image again, we're bringing in the McCannon photograph again, so you can look at the trousers and the attire that he was wearing. Okay. And well, you know, it all comes full circle. You know, when we see, you know, what they had reduced Lee Oswald down to, you know, finally after the final. This is the final lineup that I wanted to show here. Go ahead, the next slide, where he had been stripped completely of his shirt and his dignity. Okay.
Well, to make him look completely unlike the way he looked at all the other locations, it's really so blatant.
Exactly, and not only that, this photograph is so poignant to me, because you can see, you know, what, you know, that he is complaining. You know, he's saying, "Wait a minute, what about me? Why am I in a T-shirt?" You know, and you've got all these people here in this lineup, and plus they've got him right next to a kid. That kid next to him can't be more than 17, 18 years old. You know, and so this is one of the indications here of how unfair these lineups were.
Oh yeah, ridiculous, completely ridiculous.
You know, this was the final lineup, because all the earlier lineups they had allowed him to wear the shirt, but on the last lineup here, you know, they said no, you know, take the shirt off, you know. And then finally, you know, this is a very famous image, a photograph, you know, where he just looks resigned, you know, and accepting his fate. You know, this is such an incredible image here, where, you know, you can look at the pain in his face, and he seems, you know, completely, you know, accepting the fate.
Look at the strange look of the officer on the left as we look at the photograph.
Yeah,
holding him in contempt.
Yeah, with a incredibly hateful look. You know. Yeah. So
and the sergeant just looks, you know.
Yeah.
He hasn't a clue. He hasn't a clue what's going on here.
Yeah. So that's what I call the travails, you know, of the rust-colored shirt, and I'll let you, gentlemen.
Okay, go back about 4 or 5 slides to the photograph where he's running and with a shirt. Up to the next one. Yeah, that's good. That's it.
Right there.
Now, Larry, you're making a terribly important point here, because if Lee Oswald is rushing to get into the Rambler, and he has to be somehow, at least at the periphery, involved in all of this. In fact, I mean, that's a very disturbing for those who would want to argue that he was, you know, not involved in any way, shape, or form. But, you know, he was also working as an informant for the FBI. He may very well have had the assignment of trying to penetrate the group. That's what Judith has told us.
Exactly.
And I wonder whether this, therefore, doesn't tend to confirm her version of events involving Lee.
Absolutely.
Well, if you remember L.J. Delsa, who was on the HSCA committee, if I'm not mistaken, believes that Lee Oswald was involved and at one point believed that he was going to participate in the assassination. However, he believed it was it was going to occur at a different city. I was completely surprised when it happened. Now, this is what...
Well, you know, Lee, someone named Lee, who was an informant, blew the whistle on an attempt to take out JFK in Chicago, you know.
Right. Well, there are...
Bolton
he totally believes that Lee is not innocent. So we're going to have to interview him. He's really getting up there in age, so we'll have to talk to him again.
Who are you talking about?
Delsa.
Yeah, L.J. Delsa. We interviewed him last year.
Last year, yeah. The old man.
And what did he have to say?
He believes, and also Eric Martin, who was the captain of the New Orleans Police Department, they believe and they feel that they have enough evidence to show that Lee Harvey Oswald was going to participate and be a shooter. However, he didn't believe that it was going to happen in Dallas and was completely surprised when it happened with him right in front of the depository. Now, this is what L.J. Delsa has to say.
Where did Lee believe the shooting was going to take place?
In another city at a different time.
Yeah. What other city? What other time, Gary?
Well, that's why we're going to have to interview him. He's really getting up there in age.
Did we go out and talk with this guy ourselves?
Yeah, last year. Remember, I left. Remember, I had to take the plane, and you guys went by yourselves.
I want to get Don and give him a chance to give his reflections on everything we've gone through. Don.
Okay, so maybe as an alternate city, I thought Miami was even more prime maybe than Chicago.
They had a warning of an attempt to take him out in Miami, and they flew him by helicopter. They canceled the motorcade.
Yeah, I think up until that point, I think Miami was their deal. But then I think once that fell through, I think that's when Dallas really came to prominence.
Miami is where Willie Somerset taped the Joseph Miltier.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, I think after that, it's when they had to kind of go to Plan B.
And they had Plan C and Plan D.
Don't you remember we called?
I don't know. It seems to me that Dallas had all the requisites. It had Dealey Plaza. It had all the Masonic symbolism. It was totally controlled by supporters of Lyndon Baines Johnson. I'm skeptical about the other attempts. It seems to me Dallas just fits hand in glove all the motives that went into taking him out. I'm willing to be convinced I'm wrong, but it just seems to me Dallas was the perfect place.
I believe it was the perfect place, but Lee Oswald believed it was going to happen somewhere else, but he was deceived. Now,
Gary, I get that. I'm talking about the idea that he was going to be taken out in Miami or Chicago. I'm skeptical about that. Those may have been pseudo stories to plant the idea of an assassination, to get it out there into the public. So when it actually happens, we say, oh, yeah, gee, now I realize they were going to try it in Miami. They were going to try it in Chicago. They actually got him in Dallas.
Right. Yep. Just to refresh your memory, Dr. Fetzer, we crossed the causeway, the 24-mile bridge.
Yeah. I'm remembering, Gary. I don't remember everything he said, but I remember our conversation, having the conversation. You know, I don't remember the details of what he had to say.
All right. We'll have to have one again.
I heard there wasn't even, maybe in Wisconsin, it might have happened.
Let me tell you that we know that there was a group of Cubans that had been stalking him from city to city. Okay.
Yeah, I think once the DM brothers were taken out, I think the clock started ticking then. And
the clock started ticking when Jack accepted Lyndon as his running mate.
Yeah, but it was game on. I think it was game on though. Once the DM brothers were removed, and I think Kennedy, that's when he kind of knew he might be up against the real power structure at that point.
Right. From what I understand, Kennedy was really upset when they assassinated the president of Vietnam.
Yeah, the DM brothers. He had opposed that. He said it was not to happen. And there's this picture of him in profound grief after being informed that it had happened in spite of his instructions that it should not.
Yeah. He was starting to begin to realize he wasn't as in control as he thought.
That's right. That's correct, Gary. He wasn't as in control as he should be and deserved to be. He had members of his own staff who were betraying him, including the ambassador to Vietnam.
So I guess the question we realized Lee was in the doorway, but then I guess just how much did he really know? How involved was he? Was he completely innocent?
Right.
That's the questions now.
Right.
Well, you know, what does innocence mean in this context? I mean, if he's working for the government and he's trying to break it up and he has to infiltrate to be in that position, he's certainly innocent in the profound sense that he was working for truth, justice, and to save the life of the president. But to say he had a peripheral involvement and therefore in that sense he wasn't innocent, that seems to me to be true, but also to be trivial.
And he was living on a razor's edge.
Well, my big issue with Oswald is, okay, how did he go to Russia and then come back if he was not a government officer?
Oh, Don, there's no doubt about it. He did that for the CIA. He was recruited by the ONI when he was at the recruit depot in San Diego. This is not debatable. He was stationed at our most secure base in Atsugi, the base of the U-2 overflights. He defected to Russia on behalf of the CIA. When they came back, a CIA organization met him and gave him money to relocate.
And the State Department gave him a loan that he never had to pay back.
Yeah, there you go, Don. Absolutely.
I always thought that it was amazing.
He was one of our intel agents, and he worked for ONI, he worked for the CIA, and he worked for the FBI, because at the time of his death, Wagner Carr, the Attorney General of Texas, immediately ascertained that he was working as an informant. He had informant number 279, and he was being paid $200 a month right up to the time of the assassination.
Man, but his mother went to her grave saying that he was an agent, Jim.
She was right. She was right.
So, yeah, I guess
remember, this is a guy who grew up on I Led 3 Lives. You know, Judah confirmed that. I mean, he believed in that. He wanted to be a spy.
Right. For me, I mean, I guess the term innocence has to be relative. I mean, he was involved.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you got to talk about layers or degrees because he was working for the government. He was a good guy. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Now, if you look at Weston,
but I am troubled by this thing of him rushing down and getting into the Rambler. Now that we have to ponder. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, another thing.
Ruth Payne, you can't say. I mean, Ruth and Michael Payne were hardcore ops.
Yeah, CIA, sure.
Yep. Yeah. So if you're running into
George DeMore child too, who was it appears Oswald's handler.
Now, what would have been the pretext to get Oswald into the Texas School Book Depository? Without him suspecting.
She went in and arranged it to get him up from New Orleans. Put him in the position to be the patsy. I mean, they knew what they were doing when they got him.
But he wouldn't have gone voluntarily. He had to have been cognizant that he was playing a role, that he was investigating something going on in the Texas School Book Depository, which is what William Weston has written about the drug running and or gun running at the Texas School Book Depository Company.
Hey, Larry, what do you think of the idea of getting William Weston onto the show to talk about this too?
I'm going to try.
Why not? I mean, he might say, given our research, that he now has new insights about information he developed years and years and years ago, but he sees it live.
Yeah, he's a very good guy.
Gary, I think you ought to have an assignment to get a hold of William Weston. Well, actually, Larry's in contact with him to invite him to come on the show soon.
Yeah.
Don, do I understand you have a show for next week, that you have a whole show, an hour?
Maybe not next week.
All right, let's see if we can get William Weston on next week.
Okay.
We'll try.
Okay.
We'll try.
Larry, you did a great job here. Gary, what do you want to say in the closing minutes?
All right. I thought it was always amazing that Gary Powers of the U2 fame, which was in our history books, ever mentioned Lee Oswald's name. That always just floored me, that he ever mentioned Lee Harvey Oswald's name.
He did mention Lee's name?
Sure, he said that he felt that it was his fault that he crashed.
Oh, well, he had to have been told to say that.
I think there's no way that
planted, Gary. That was just something. That was a throwaway line.
Yeah, there's no way that
he would have had no personal knowledge of that. That was just having a role.
I see.
I want to thank you guys for a super show, Larry. You were magnificent tonight. Gary, Don, it's so great to have you here. This is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Real Deal, concluding. Which number is this, Gary?
81.
Number 81 of the new JFK show, and we look forward to seeing you all with us here next week. Thank you very much for joining.